Hey guys, this is chapter one. We're a little behind in our face-to-face class, so I thought I would go ahead and record this, and so it can help us get up to speed a little bit. But then we can spend time in class going over the menu project if you have questions or anything else. We may do a couple other little things in class as well. But don't worry, Leasia, you're not missing out on anything. Okay, so when we talk about food service, there are different approaches that we can have, but what we're going to learn about in this class is the systems approach to food service organization. And so our learning objectives are to define, sorry, I need to move my little thing here so I can actually see, define systems terms such as interdependency, dynamic equilibrium, quantifinality, analyze food service operations using the food service systems model, identify inputs and outputs of the food service system, and then discuss the transformation process, analyze ways in which factors in the environment impact the food service system. Okay, discuss the steps in the strategic management process, describe food service operations in the food service industry, and compare and contrast sustainability efforts in food service operations. All right, when we think about the system concept, a system is designed to accomplish an objective. And most of the time in our food service systems, that's to accomplish serving food to our patrons, whether that be patients or visitors in the cafeteria or at a restaurant or something like that. So within that system, there's subsystems of the system that we have created to help us accomplish that goal. And there's a relationship that exists among them. So, I always say that the dish room is the most important, because if you don't have clean dishes, you can't serve your food and you can't prepare it. And so you have to have people able to do sanitation and cleaning to make sure all the other parts of the food service work the way they need to. You have a flow of resources through the system. Is more important than basic elements, and resources can be food, it can be money, it can be people. There's lots of different resources that we access in our food service systems. And then organization objectives are more important than those of the subsystems. So we have our subsystems that are working within the food service environment, but they're all working towards the overall goal of the food service department and ultimately the organization in which it is operating. Okay, so if we look at this organization as a system, we have major parts of the system include input, transformation, output, and other parts include control, memory, environmental factors, and feedback. So input of the system is things like human, physical, or operational resources that are going to be needed to accomplish the goal. Transformation involves any action or activity used in changing input into output, so like food production. The output is the result of the transformation, the preparation of meals. The control element has three functions. It works to ensure that resources are used effectively and efficiently, meeting the organizational objectives. It ensures that organization is functioning within the legal and regulatory requirements. And then finally, it provides standards to be used in evaluation of the operations. Memory includes all stored information and provides records that we can look back on to use in the system's operation. Environmental factors include things that occur outside of the food service system yet impact some component of the system. For example, if there has been, like an early frost in Florida, and all the oranges have frozen, and so there's a decrease in the production of orange juice, and that price of orange juice goes up, so then that impacts our food service costs. Feedback includes the process by which a system gets information from its internal and external environment. So feedback can include customer service surveys, that type of thing. All right. So characteristics of an open system. So we can have different systems, but an open system has some unique qualities in that there's an interdependency is of parts, and that interdependency is a reciprocal relationship of the parts of a system. So each part mutually affects the performance of the others. And so we have to have integration of our systems in order to make sure that we're meeting our goals. So if you think about a tray line or like a room service tray line, so when we have room service in a hospital, the patient calls down, they order their food. That order gets taken by someone, it gets printed in the kitchen prepares that, it gets delivered, but there's a lot of things that have to work together, and then someone has to pick up the tray, and then the tray has to get washed and all those things. So each of those systems have to work together to ensure that the goal is being met. And if there's one part of that isn't functioning in an efficient way, it can disrupt the whole system. So dynamic equilibrium, this is the continuous response and adaptation of a system to its internal and external environment, which includes all the conditions, circumstances, and influences affecting the system. The term equifinality is applied to the organization as a system. It means that a same or similar output could be achieved by using different inputs or by varying the transformation process. In other words, there's other ways to do the same thing. So there's other ways to get to a produced meal. So we could use room service to feed all of our residents, or we could use a selective menu, or we could use several different things, but there are different ways to reach that final goal. Permeability of boundaries is the characteristic of an open system that allows the system to be penetrated or affected by changing external environment. So boundaries define the limits of a system, and permeability allows the system to interact with the environment. Interface of subsystems, and so this is really just the organizational flow. And so they all have to work with each other. And in addition to just the food service operation, we also have to think about suppliers, government agencies, community organizations, maybe even unions. There's lots of things that will have interfaces within that organization at different levels. And then finally, hierarchy is that a system is composed of subsystems of lower order. The system is also part of a larger super system. And so if we think about that hierarchy, we have maybe a food service director, and then we have supervisors, and we have cooks and tray line workers and all those things. So we have that hierarchy, but even outside of the food service department, there's an organizational chart. So the food service director is reporting to someone, in contract management, a food service director may be reporting to an official at the hospital, but they may also have a boss within their company. And so that organizational management will look just slightly different. All right, this is a food systems model, and this slide just shows you kind of how, when we look at all the input, the output, the transformation, memory, what does that all exactly look like, and what is in each of those? And so in the input, you see human resources. It also includes food supply, materials, time, money, utilities, space, equipment. That input leads to the transformation. And within transformation, we have functional subsystems, management functions, and linking processes. So through that transformation, that output is meals, and then monitoring how much, the quality, meeting customer satisfaction goals, employee satisfaction, and then ultimately being financially responsible, which is something that you regardless of where you're working, you'll probably have to be financially accountable to someone at some point. And then if we look further, we get feedback from the output from our customers, that type of thing. The control includes maybe our mission, our vision statements, the policies and procedures that we have, laws and regulations that we must follow depending on the type of facility that we're in. And then we see memory here is important because we need to keep track of records. We need to have information about forecasting. How many meals did we prepare on this day? When we're serving this, did the patients or resident like it? Do we need to prepare for more? And so all those things are important. Hold on. I apologize, I'm back. Letting my dog in. Okay, so going back to chapter 1, so we talked a little bit about that. Input of our food service system, we have human resources. So we have our frontline employees, we have our management, our supervisors, materials, facilities, and operational resources. And so materials would include food and supplies, facilities would be our space and equipment, and then operational is money, time, utilities, and that type of information. Outputs of a food service system are going to be meals, and are we producing too many? Are we not producing enough? What is the quality of those meals? Finding out how satisfied the customers are, ensuring that we're meeting customer and employee satisfaction, and then finally meeting the financial objectives set forth by the organization, whether it be a for-profit or a non-for-profit, ensuring that our food costs are aligned to what our budget or within our budgetary constraints. All right. So now let's just shift a little bit. We talked about food service systems. Let's shift a little bit to, as a manager, one of the things that you're going to have to do is help lead strategic thinking or be a strategic thinker. And so strategic thinking is a major component of a process termed strategic management. And managing strategically means developing, implementing strategies that assist the organization in maintaining a competitive advantage that sets it apart from others in the industry. So when doing this strategic management or thinking, first we have intent focused. We have a vision of where the organization should be going. So this is writing a mission and vision statement. What are our goals? What are we wanting to accomplish? It is comprehensive. It views organization as part of a larger system. Opportunistic, takes advantage of unanticipated opportunities. Long-term oriented, goes beyond the here and now and looks to the future. What are the trends in food service? What are things that may be changing that could make our unit better? Builds on past and present. So understanding things that maybe didn't go so well in the past and then building on that knowledge, but also understanding, what we can do with what we have to work with here in the present. And then it's hypothesis driven. So it continues to ask questions, how can we do it better? How can we do it different? Evaluates those ideas and comes up with a plan on whether, it's feasible or not to implement those. Um, in food service organization, we always have environmental threats. This is going to be more so when we think about, well, this can come from a few different things. If you're contract management, an environmental threat could be another company coming in trying to take over your account. Sometimes we'll see this with suppliers and food vendors when other suppliers will come in and try to low bid, or want to provide you with a service, and so substitutes other products and services meeting the customer's needs in a similar way. Suppliers, buyers, each of those can be an environmental threat. And it's important to recognize those because that can help us, if we understand what our threats are, that can help us plan and be more competitive as we move forward. So steps in the strategic management process. There's some different things that we have to do, but one, we need to involves an analysis of the company, its environment, creation and implementation of strategies to move the company towards its goals, and evaluation of progress. So analysis includes a review and revision, if needed, of a company's vision, mission, values, and objectives. Implementation involves the determination of strategic direction for the company and the creation and implementation of strategies to help gain that competitive advantage. Evaluation involves assessing whether changes have occurred in the organization's internal or external strategic position and determining whether the organization is progressing satisfactorily toward achieving its objectives. We could call that evaluation. A lot of times that's our quality control. So our quality management program, that could be part of that evaluation process. And we've seen these changes throughout, especially hospital food service industries, where we used to be like a non-select menu, and where they had like 2 choices and they would circle for each meal and that would go down. And so when CMS changed how they do funding for some of the hospitals, and part of what included your dollars and cents in your accreditation was patient satisfaction, it was identified that food service was a big part of patient satisfaction. And so companies and hospitals had to change the way they were providing those services to patients to better meet their needs while they were there. All right, so strategy implementation. So this is the second step so we have our analysis. Our second step is implementation, and this involves the determination of strategic direction for the company and the creation and implementation of strategies to help gain a competitive advantage. So there's 3 basic strategies: cost leadership, being the lowest cost provider for a product or service; differentiation, being different and unique, that the customer values what you're bringing to the table; and then focus, using cost leadership or differentiation strategy to target specific limited size niche markets. So once you've figured out the strategies, once an organization has begun the implementation, managers sometimes will have to look at the organizational structure, maybe link performance and evaluation to pay, create an organizational climate supportive of change, and then look at some of your production processes. Maybe you need to change your processes to better meet your goals. All right, so we've talked a little bit about strategic management and how that works. Let's just do a quick overview of the food service industry. So we have 2 different types. We have commercial, which is going to be like your restaurants and places that you go out to eat. And then we have our on-site services, which are places like hospitals, colleges, that type of thing. When you think about commercial food services, there's a lot of different options here. We have full service restaurants. We maybe have limited service or limited menu restaurants, airports. A lot of our, like, if you think about attractions, so museums, zoos, sporting events, even entertainment parks. They've changed the way that they're providing their food services now too. It's a lot different than it used to be. I mean, I think about Busch Stadium, when we used to get to go there. And the food options, when I was a kid, you got hot dog and nachos. Like that was your choices. Now you can get the fancy nachos, or you can go get some kind of special barbecue. And there's all kinds of different options there, because that's what people, when they're going to the ballpark, they want a certain experience. They want those items there. Convenience stores, those have changed so much. I mean, you just go into a Quick Trip and you see the difference of, there's hot food. There's also healthier options now. You have lots of salads and fruit and cheese and things like that that weren't available even just 15 years ago at convenience stores, because they're meeting the needs of, it's very consumer driven, and that's what the consumers are looking for. All right. In full service restaurants, we have casual dining. So think of like Wings, etc., or something like that, or fine dining, which would be 36, where, you have your waiter, waitress, and all that goes along with that. Convenience stores. So there's a lot of different things. We think of our traditional, but now that's even changed, and sometimes we'll have mini marts in hotels and things like that. They'll have little mini kiosk or things where you can buy certain things quickly and not a big convenience store. All right, on-site food services, so hospitals, schools, college, universities, childcare, senior care. Depending on the program will kind of drive what type of service is provided at each of those. So in hospitals, a lot of them are moving towards like a room service, or some type of service that provides the patient with a lot of options where they can choose what they're eating within their recommended dietary guidelines. Schools, they have to meet the standards for the National School Lunch Program. So we are seeing some changes in that as well. I think about when I was in school, if you went through the school lunch line, you just had like one choice, right? And now they are giving kids options for fruits and vegetables and things, and changing that. Colleges and universities have changed significantly because it's driven by the students. And so that's why, like here at Southeast, we have Panda, we have Papa John's, we have Chick-fil-A, and that's what the students want. And so they're giving them more options in addition to your traditional dining halls. We have senior care, and that can look different in a variety of ways. And then correctional and employee feeding, which could be more of a cafeteria style for those. In senior care, depending on the level of care, may determine what type of food service is offered. So in a lot of my nursing homes and skilled nursing, we have a static 4-week cycle menu where they have their main choice and an alternate choice. Some places have a buffet, and a lot of your assisted livings, they'll have kind of a main meal, but they also have a menu in which residents can order foods that they like. And in independent living, we oftentimes will see where if they're in like a senior community, they can go to a restaurant or something available on campus. So there are different types of food service operations. And so a lot of our restaurants are self-operation or partnering. We do see franchises, so like Wings, etc., or Panda Express, those are all franchise. Contracting, that includes what we see like here on campus. Chartwells, the university contracts with Chartwells to provide the food service. And so there's many different options when it comes to how the industry operates, and it kind of depends on, we can see self-operation also in some hospitals, like St. Francis is a self-op cafeteria food service department, where Southeast is a contracted one. So it kind of depends on what the organization wants and what their goals are. Okay. This just gives you some of the advantages and disadvantages talking about small businesses. One thing I want to mention that is important to know, that in a sole proprietorship, if you are the owner and you're opening up a restaurant, is that if something happens, if you have loans, and you are personally responsible. And so if you are unable to pay those loans, or if you got sued or something like that, they could take your house and all those kinds of things. So a lot of places you'll see they'll create an LLC. And so that helps to protect your personal assets, and they can only go after the business assets. And then you can see the information there about partnerships and corporations. I'm not going to read all those to you. Okay, just real quickly, sustainability is a big kind of, I don't want to say it's the hot button word, but it is. And so a lot of places are looking to be more sustainable, not just only for improving food service operations, but helping the environment and being good citizens as well. And so looking for ways to conserve energy and resources, socially acceptable. Resources are distributed equitably. People working in the food service system are treated justly, and foods that are produced benefit human health. And then economically viable, provides livelihood that supports families, economic control of production, distribution, and access equally shared. Okay. There's lots of sustainability efforts going on in food service operations. I'm not going to read all these to you here. You can go back and look them over. But you can see through water conservation, lighting, air quality, all those things can make a difference in becoming a more sustainable operation. So think about Chartwell's. Their containers, their to-go containers are biodegradable. They've changed those, and so that creates a more sustainable, that's one of their sustainability efforts. When people use the paper straws, which drive me nutty, but I will use them because they're kind of weird. But anyway, that's another sustainable practice. Or doing farm to table or something like that is sustainable also. All right, guys, that's it. That's quick and dirty for chapter 1. If you have questions, let me know. See you, some of you tomorrow, and the rest of you next week. Have a great weekend.